Shannon, let me start with you. Trump and several other Fulton County defendants are asking to be tried separately. How might the judge decide whether to split the cases?
Yeah, this is turning into quite the game of musical chairs. You have, two defendants, actually, Ken Cheeseborough and Sidney Powell, who have both asked to go first, but they don't want to go together. And then at the other end, you have Donald Trump, who is probably going to do his best to slow things down. I mean, his attorneys, I think, would be happy to delay this until well after the 2024 elections. So it is going to be very, very interesting to see what this judge, who we've barely heard from yet, he's only been on the bench 6 months and is young and, has not, we don't have much of a record on him. It's going to be very interesting to see how he slices and dices this case, and some of that could have a lot to do with what we hear from federal court, too. Will some of these cases be taken to federal court? Will that mean all of the cases be taken to federal court? So I think we should learn a lot this week, but that is going to be one of the key questions is scheduling and timing.
Another question for you, Shannon. How likely is it that we will see more defendants tried on October 23rd, along with Cheeseborough?
Well, it's hard to say because, it does seem that the judge is not going to want to have 19 different trials here, right? And the DA has said all along that her plan was to try all of these folks together. I mean, she has claimed, that one of the reasons she likes the RICO law is that it allows the jurors to see the totality of the case, not just one point of view, but the totality, all of it together. And so I think she's going to fight really hard to get at least some of these defendants tried together. But, as I said, I think we're going to learn a lot this week. We're going to hear from Judge McAfee. I would expect that we'll hear the judge, the ruling from the federal court. And, some of these pieces may kind of come into better focus as we get that information.
One more question for you, Shannon. Do you think having that severance request denied, if it's denied, will that convince some of the defendants to flip? You
mean Trump's severance request?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a lot of these folks want to be. Some of these folks want to be severed.
Yeah, everybody wants to be severed. It's the popular thing to do right now. I don't know. I think that Trump. It'll be interesting to see if folks want to be tried separately from Trump. I mean, he is the one who could be slightly toxic to a Fulton County jury pool at least. So you may have some of these people want to put as much distance as they can between them and the former president. Again, it's just difficult to say. We don't have a good read on this judge yet. But we do know that Fani Willis is going to be fighting her darndest to keep as many of these cases together as she can.
And so, Brendan, Governor Kemp broke with his fellow Republicans by not going along with their efforts to impeach DA Fani Willis and accused them of engaging in political theater. What's that about?
Yeah, really remarkable. And Brian Kemp has continued to be a different type of Republican, a different type of governor, frankly, standing on the side of what is obviously right and true all along without worrying about what Donald Trump is going to do. And this goes back a long way. Brian Kemp and Donald Trump have clashed quite a bit over the long term. And Donald Trump has tried to defeat Brian Kemp in a primary. And so there's no love lost there. But what Brian Kemp has shown is that if you stand up and demonstrate your values and morals and communicate them very clearly, people will respect that and back you. And Georgia, as much as Donald Trump is probably still going to win the nomination there or the primary there, Georgia is Brian Kemp country much more than it is Donald Trump country. It just shows you what potentially could have been if more Republican governors and elected officials had acted in that way. It probably could be a very different dynamic right now.
Brendan, USA Today reports Trump's super PAC is running out of money for his legal defense. Quote here, his key fund has spent nearly all of the more than $150 million it raised and is sitting on less than $4 million. So Brendan, does this mean folks aren't giving like they used to, or that the super PAC is spending money to defend way too many people?
Yeah, it's probably more the latter. I don't think Donald Trump is ever going to really run out of money, but I think what it shows you is everything in Donald Trump's political world revolves around what's good for him, not necessarily what's good for the party or the elections. It's a very selfish operation. It always has been, and he's never been one to share with others. I don't think Donald Trump's ever going to run out of money, but I think what this shows is this is probably a pretty weak campaign apparatus going into a general election. For all kinds of reasons, obviously the ones that we're discussing here. And if Donald Trump continues to be distracted and more focused on keeping himself out of jail, that doesn't position your potential nominee very well to win a general election.
I mean, he might have a weak campaign apparatus, Brendan, but with each indictment, Trump only grows his lead over the Republican field. Can anyone really stop him?
Well, no one's really trying to stop him, and that's what's so frustrating about this campaign. We don't really have much of a campaign here, to be honest, and I think that's what you're seeing. And even as Donald Trump is clearly the front runner here, nobody is really emerging as an alternative. Nobody is even acting like they want to take him on. They're all in relatively self-preservation mode, trying to make sure that they don't offend anybody, and that's what you're going to get. When nobody takes on the front runner is going to win. I mean, it's as simple as that. And it's pretty much, in my view, too late for anything else to change at this point. They've had a bunch of pitches right over the middle to hit, and they all took a pass on them when he got indicted time and time again, and nobody did anything about it. Those are the biggest moments. Now he's going to have all of our attention for the months ahead, and nobody's going to be able to reclaim it. So, nothing is over until it's over, but it feels pretty over to me.
Right. And Basil, same question to you, but with a twist. So with each indictment, Trump only grows his lead over the Republican field. Should Democrats be careful for what they wish for in having Trump as Biden's 2024 opponent?
Yeah, it's interesting because there have been questions about which GOP member would be the preferred candidate, preferred opponent for Joe Biden. And, owing to what has been said already about the impact that Trump has had on the party, in my view, Trumpism is on the ballot. It doesn't really matter which candidate emerges, whether it's Donald Trump or any other GOP candidate. Trumpism is on the ballot, and that's what has to be defeated. And I think that given what you've seen from Democrats so far, a more engaged conversation with voters about the economy, you've seen unity among Democrats across the country. There are a ton of younger Democratic candidates for office and current office holders that have the ability to be surrogates for the party on a whole host of issues. And so I think the Democrats are in a good position to run against Donald Trump or whoever the GOP ends up putting to the forefront. But, I'll make this other quick point that was raised a minute ago. Imagine if Donald Trump's lead stays this significant through the next several weeks and months going into the first primary. There's a potential for us not to see Donald Trump debate anybody in the entire primary cycle. And, what does that say about, number one, where the Republican Party is, but also how difficult it's going to be for any of the potential alternatives to Donald Trump to really break through. So I think those sort of disaffected Republicans, if you will, and those independents, again, I think Democrats are going to be in a strong position to talk to them.
They might not see Donald Trump because a lot of the time he's going to be in a courtroom. Just to put a finer point on it. So, Basil, Trump's trial in Atlanta is likely to be must-watch TV. So far, President Biden has been content to remain silent throughout Trump's travails. Should he continue to do that, or is there a way for him to engage without looking like he's politicizing the proceedings?
If you've ever worked for an elected official, they'll always say, I don't want to get involved in a court case. Once it's in the judiciary, don't want to get involved, don't want to look like we're influencing it. I do think there's some opportunity for Joe Biden to speak to some issues. If something gets raised that is, startling, something we haven't heard before, and I think addresses this larger narrative that the Democrats are going to put forth about really protecting democracy. I think in those instances, he can speak to it. But outside of that, I think he stays out of the fray. Let some of the other party leaders do that. Hakeem Jeffries can certainly do that. Nancy Pelosi, who is a frequent thorn in the side of Donald Trump, would be fantastic at doing this. So there are surrogates that can actually make that case, can use it to raise money, can use it to talk to voters about Republican opponents in general elections down ballot. But Joe Biden himself, President of the United States, stay out of the fray, be presidential at all times.